Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be going over how to paint weapons. This is a quick and easy method that I use that gives a kind of a worn, used look. I'm using it to paint a bolt gun in this particular instance because obviously most people collect Space Marines at some point in their lives, so this seems quite appropriate. But this works really well on any kind of weapons that you want to use. As long as you want to kind of go for a slightly weathered look, then this is absolutely perfect. So I've started off with a base coat of Corax white. You could do a Zenithal with this and have sort of a darker shading underneath, but I've just gone for a flat white on this one. And it's then given a thin coat of a 50-50 mix of Black Templar contrast paint and contrast medium. Now, once that's dry, what I'm doing now is to go back into the recesses with that same mix. So all of the deeper recesses, and then just giving that a second coat or sometimes a third coat as well with this. Just to kind of pick those details out and give it a little bit more contrast and definition. Now, when that initial coat was put on, I've done my best to kind of avoid that kind of blotchiness that you sometimes get with contrast paint. You can see a little bit of it showing there, but that's really not too much of an issue because that's going to get covered up and blended in some of the next steps. So don't worry too much about it, but try to keep it reasonably clean and smooth on that initial coat of the black. And this is the result once all of the black areas are dry. And it actually looks pretty good already. You already get quite a bit of definition and already getting some highlights and things there as well because of the way the contrast paint works. So as a next step, I'll then take a sponge and some dark Reaper, which is a very dark, sort of almost grey blue, and just stipple this on quite lightly and taking my time because I don't want it to kind of just splodge loads of it all over. I just want it to be quite subtle, but enough to start adding some texture and some colour into that black. Once that's done, I'll then go back in with a brush and just do the same thing again, just picking out some of the edges and just adding a little bit of scratchy marks and things on it. It just helps to, as I said, add sort of texture and interest to it rather than just having a flat black on the weapon, and it adds to that kind of weathered, worn look. Now once that's done, I then go back in and do the same thing again using a sponge to stipple on some Rhinox hide, which is a very dark sort of chocolate brown. I don't put anywhere near as much of it on, but this is kind of, again, keep adding to that texture of the paint, and also it sort of helps to simulate dirt and grime, and yeah, it just helps to kind of add some more visual interest. And I've done the same thing again by going back in with a brush and just touching that up as well. The next step is to go back in with rust grey, which is a kind of a light blue grey, and just add a few more highlights to that. So I'm picking out things like rivets and any kind of like really raised detail, and then just using the very side of my brush to kind of just add little tapping motions down some of the edges of the gun and just kind of help to accentuate the highlights that the contrast paint already made. And yeah, hopefully you can start to see some of those colours and things. It's quite subtle, but it's enough. It adds some real interest to that black, rather than just painting it flat black and then putting an edge highlight on it. It just looks more interesting. It looks more realistic as well, I think. Just having it a little bit battered, a little bit damaged, it looks like it's been used, and just, I don't know, it helps to kind of ground it in the setting a little bit more. The next step is to add some metallics. I'm using dark aluminium from Vallejo, but any kind of dark metallic colour would do. So something like lead belcher from Citadel. And yeah, just pick out the areas that you want to be metallic. You could actually skip this stage entirely if you wanted to, if you want to kind of like just stick with a kind of entirely black gun or whatever, but I just like to add a little bit of metallics on here and there, just to kind of break it up and again make it a little bit more interesting to look at. And yes, before anybody in the comments points it out, I haven't drilled the barrel. I do sometimes, sometimes I don't. On this one I haven't, so yeah, feel free to comment about that if that's something that bothers you. While I'm doing this, I thought I'd mention a couple of updates for the channel, just in case you weren't aware of it. We now have a Discord server, which is really great. It's been really nice talking to people on there. I'll make sure there's a link in the description for that, so please come and have a look. And also, I now have an affiliate link with Element Games. So if you're in the UK and you want to buy something, if you use that link, it gives a little kickback to the channel. It helps me to keep things running here. It costs you nothing extra. So again, there'll be a link in the description. So yeah, if you want to support the channel, that's a really great way of doing it. Thank you so much. Also, let me know in the comments what you think about this style of video as well. I kind of wanted to start maybe putting a few little bits and pieces together like this, where just focusing on one particular thing rather than painting in a whole miniature. I think it might be quite useful for some people if you just want to kind of have, if you're looking for something quite specific. And I mean, let's face it, everyone paints bolt guns at some point, so it seemed quite an appropriate thing to do. So yeah, just let me know what you think anyway. I'll be interested in the feedback. So yeah, the next step here is just go into any of these areas where there's sort of like bullet casing showing, and I use Retributor armor to give that a base coat. Just nice and quick, nothing too fancy. Just it's a nice color to help represent that. But again, if you have your own method for doing those, like for painting the bullet casings, then obviously go with that. You know, whatever color you feel you want to use. So the next step is to go back to the original mix that we made, so the 50/50 Black Templar and contrast medium, and give a thin coat over all of those metallics, including the gold as well. And it just helps to tie everything together, shade these areas, and also just take the edge off the metallics so they're not too shiny. And the other good thing as well, obviously just reusing that same mix, so you're not having to mix up another color, and it just keeps the paint numbers down. And just if you're batch painting as well, it means you've just got one less thing to worry about. You can just kind of get through these relatively quickly. Now at this point, I wasn't 100% happy with the highlights, so I went back to the rust grey just to kind of add a little bit more, because I didn't think it was showing up quite enough. This is entirely optional, and obviously maybe if I'd done it correctly the first time, I wouldn't be doing this step now. So yeah, this is just me kind of just wanted to kind of get it right and make sure it was how I wanted it to look. Yeah, these things aren't always perfect the first time, so yeah, sometimes you have to go back and add a few bits and pieces. So now I am highlighting the metals. I'm using the same dark aluminium that I used for the base coat of the metallics. I'm not using a lighter color. The initial base coat has been darkened down with that wash, so I'm just using the same color just to kind of pick out a few edges and things. Not going too mad. I don't want this really bright. I don't want it really shiny, so I'm not using you know, like a brighter silver or anything, which I would do sometimes if I was highlighting up metallics. But this just seemed appropriate. Just it's enough. It's not. I'm not going over the top with it. I've then gone over with an extra sort of highlight, just doing some tapping motions with the same metal along some of the edges of the gun as well, just to kind of represent battle damage and chipping to the casing. And again, it just helps to add some visual interest and some more texture to it, and make it feel like it's real and it's been used and has been worn and battered. Yeah, so again, been quite subtle with that. I'm not going mad. I'm just picking out a few bits and pieces. It's just enough so that you can see it without it being kind of over the top. And this is where we are when all that's done. You could leave it here at this point, to be honest, and I'd be very happy with that. Really like the way this looks. Some weapons, like this particular one, have some scroll work on it, so I thought I'd just quickly go over that as well. I'm just giving a quick base coat of Carrick stone, so maybe 2 or 3 very thin coats, just to get a nice flat colour on there. I've then shaded that in the recesses with some Dark Oath Flesh, which is a contrast paint, but again, any kind of fleshy sort of brown colour or whatever will work for the shading on that. I'm then using Rakarth Flesh as an initial highlight colour for this, and then I'll do a final sort of dot highlight on the very edges, the very corners with, what did I use? Pallid Witch Flesh. Sorry, I completely forgot what that paint was called. Yeah, it was Pallid Witch Flesh. I'm going to leave that mistake in there though, so yeah, I did get it right. Now, as a final step, I'm going to add some dirt and some rust and just weather it just a tiny bit more. This is, again, is entirely optional. You don't have to go down this route. So this is very, very thin down scrag brown. So just thin down with water to a wash consistency, really thin, and just dropping that into some of the recessed areas, so kind of around the rivets and into a few of the little gaps and things here and there. Being quite subtle, not going mad, just a little bit here and there. And yeah, that's it, all done. And I'm really happy with the way this looks. I think it just genuinely looks like a worn weapon, something that's been used a lot, and I just like this method. I think it works really well. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I will see you all soon.